Hi, this is Sai Kumar. Previously, we discussed about Transfer of Property Act, reversion, reminder, and some other basic concepts. Now, in this lecture, we're going to discuss about rules relating to transfer, who can transfer the property, and formalities of transfer, and kinds of properties. In case if you haven't watched the first video, I suggest you to watch the first video and then watch this video. Right. So let's start. First, we're going to discuss about properties. We know that there are two types of properties, and also we have discussed some terms in the last video, like attached to the earth and rooted to the earth, right? Embedded in the to the earth. Generally, immovable properties are attached to the earth and rooted to the earth, right? So while you are studying, like if you get the terms, don't get confused. Now, we're going to discuss about movable property and immovable property. In Transfer of Property Act, they haven't defined what is movable and what is immovable. So they might have taken the definition from other acts, but it is not necessary for us. So they just define like this: any kind of property excluding the immovable property. So movable property, so it's not a proper definition, but we can learn like this: any kind of property apart from the immovable properties, right? And they haven't defined the immovable property definition in Transfer of Property Act, but they have defined in the negative sense. So they have mentioned that apart from the standing timber and growing crops and grass, everything is immovable property, right? So the immovable property does not include standing timber, growing crops, and grass. And grass includes, this growing crops includes all vegetable growths like carrots, right? So carrots also attached to the earth, right? Just because it is attached to the earth, we can't call that as a immovable property, because those are growing crops. So in this act, they haven't defined specifically what is immovable property, but they are saying what is not immovable property. They are defining in the negative sense, right? So it's like a negative list. You might have learned in GST. Okay. Immovable property and benefits to arise of immovable property also considered as a immovable property. So we know, we have discussed now what is immovable property. Not only that, if any benefits arising out of immovable property also called as immovable property. Land is an immovable property, and benefits out of the land like lease, we will call that as a immovable property, right? So let's just say there is a lake. Lake is a immovable property, and there is a person, A owns the lake, assume, and then A is giving right to fish in that lake to B, right? So he is right to fish. That is also an immovable property. Right to fish also an immovable property. So any immovable property and benefits to arise out of that immovable property also called as immovable property, right? Okay, so next we're gonna move on to the rules relating to the transfer. In this act, we won't consider if the transfer by will, right? And if the transfer by operation of law, in the last class we have discussed. So there are some rules. So only if these rules satisfy, then only it will be considered as a transfer under the Transfer of Property Act. So what are those rules? So transfer must be between inter vivos. Inter vivos means living persons. then only it will be considered as a transfer under this act. Transfer by will is not a transfer according to this act, and transfer may be in present or future, right? So how does it this future transfer works? Let's just say I didn't buy house, okay, but I'm entering into a contract now only with, let's just say A is entering into a contract with B that if A buys a house in future, then he will immediately transfer to B, right? So that is future transfer. A transfer may be in present or future. Both kind of transfers will be covered in the under the Transfer of Property Act only. Now who can transfer the property? So section 7 defines that every person who has a capacity to enter into a contract. So now we know the contract, Indian Contract Act, it is defined under that. And if you haven't, if you don't know that, if you haven't studied in your foundation, there is a video about that also, so you can check it out. And every person who has a capacity, what is meant by capacity, that we have to know. And so contract is defined in the Indian Contract Act. And who are authorized to dispose and entitled to transfer. Generally, who are entitled to transfer? Owner. If you are not the owner of the property, how can you transfer, right? So the owner has a entitled to transfer, then authorized to dispose. Let's just say owner gave a power of attorney to someone, then that person is authorized to sell, right? So any person who has a capacity to enter into a contract and who are authorized to dispose, like owner gave a power of attorney to them or owner only transferring the property. Now what is meant by this capacity? So according to our Indian Contract Act, we will call a person who are competent to enter into a contract only if he is a major. That means minors are not allowed to enter into a contract. Sound mind. Sound mind means he is in his senses. That means he, while making a contract, he is not drugged, or he is not drunk, or he is not a lunatic idiot. He can take a rational decision, right? So then we will call him as a sound mind. Not expressly disqualified by law. So generally prisoners or foreign aliens, alien enemies. Alien enemies. Alien means foreign, enemies means, let's just say, assume that there is a war going on between India and Pakistan, and at that point of time you are not supposed to enter into a contract with Pakistan, right? So you are expressly disqualified. So those are alien enemies. So if you are not disqualified, then you have a capacity. Who is a major, sound mind, and not expressly disqualified by the law, then you have a capacity to enter into a contract. So minor cannot be a transferor. So let's just say what is meant by transferor. Assume okay, transferor and transferee. Let's just say A is selling a land to B, right? That means A is transferring land to B. So A will be called as transferor and B will be called as transferee. So minor cannot be a transferor. That means minor cannot transfer the property. Minor cannot be a transferor, but minor can be a transferee. That means who receives the property, right? Okay. Next, so far we have discussed about who can transfer the property. So major, who has a sound mind and who are not disqualified by law. And there are formalities of transfer. So the formalities will be, if it is a movable property, and then again immovable properties. So if it is a movable property, you can transfer the property by delivery. You can just deliver the product to the other person. The person who are buying it, you can just deliver them. But if it is a immovable property, again we can subclassify them into, the property value is maybe more than 100 rupees or less than 100 rupees. If it is more than 100 rupees, then it is compulsory. You have to transfer through the register instrument. That means it's nothing but you have to register the instrument. You have to go to the register office and then register your transfer. So if the value of the property is more than 100 rupees, then you have to register the property. If it is less than the 100 rupees, then it is optional. Registration is optional. You can either deliver the product, you can either deliver the property, or you can transfer through the registered instruments. It's not compulsory if it is less than 100 rupees. But if it is more than 100 rupees, it is compulsory. It's not an optional. Registration is compulsory. And in case of reversion of intangible property, it shall be transferred through only by registered instrument. Sorry. So if it is a reversion, in previous class we have discussed about what is meant by reversion. Or, this is not of, this is or intangible property. Intangible properties means we know, like copyrights, patents, goodwill, all are intangible properties, right? So if these intangible properties, if you are transferring, then it should be done through the register instrument only. And if you are transferring the reversion, then also it should be done to the register instrument only. So registration is compulsory in case of reversion and intangible property. And when the transfer is effected in writing, so either you can transfer the property in by oral also, but it will be mostly in writing only, right? So then executant nothing but the person who signs it, right? So when you are transferring the property, obviously you have to sign on it, on the instrument, registered instrument. So the person who signs it, we call them as executant. Now, one of the important formality of the transfer is attestation. You might have known or heard most of the times attestation. So what is meant by this attestation? Attestation is nothing but authentication of the signature. Like, let's just say A is transferring the land to B, and A is transferring through a registered instrument. Now A is signing it. A has to sign it, right? Executant has to sign it. We know that. But what is the guarantee that is a sign, right? So we need somebody to authenticate. So that's when we use attestation. So attestation is nothing but authentication of the signature of the executant. So we already seen who is executant of the document by attestar. So like if you go to the register office, and there will be a person called attestar. In front of him you need to sign it. Then he will authenticate the signature of the executant of the document by putting his own signature. So first he will sign it, and then again attestar will sign on that, saying that yes, this sign belongs to A, right? And then valid attestation. So these are the points for the valid attestation. So there must be at least 2 or more witnesses. While you are signing it, while you are transferring the property, there should be 2 or more witnesses, and each witness must see the executant sign or some other person sign in the instrument in the presence and by the direction of the executant. So let's just say, in previously we have discussed about executant. Executant has to sign in it, right? The person who signs in it is called executant. But what if the person who are transferring, like we call him as a transferor, what if the transferor is illiterate, right? Then he won't sign it, so he will instruct some other person to sign it, and also he will put his thumb impression, right? So either executant sign it or he might instruct some other person to sign on that. So now these witnesses has to see, must see, witnesses must see while the executant sign, or some other person sign in the instrument in the presence and by the direction of the executant. So if the executant signing it, these witnesses must see that, or if the person who are directed by the executant, like if he is illiterate, some other person is signing it, right? So that is also should be witnessed by the witnesses. Then only it will be called as valid attestation. So to call it as a valid attestation, so we need two or more witnesses, and each witness must see the executant sign. Now another formality, most of the important formality is registration. It is an essential legal formality to effect the valid transfer. And let's just say there is a Sam who executed a mortgage of his land to the bank, right? Nothing. So what does it mean? Nothing but he gave the land as a mortgage to the bank and took a loan, took the money. So this is nothing but executed a mortgage. So when it is executed a mortgage, obviously bank will register that mortgage. Now again, Sam sold a land to the Kumar. Sam sold land to Kumar. Now the scenario, let's just say Sam didn't pay the loan to the HDFC, and HDFC will go to the will go to the Kumar and claim the land. Now Kumar cannot say that I didn't know that you are he took a mortgage from the bank. He cannot say that. Why? Because whenever there is a, because here they mention that registered. Registered means it's nothing but documented proof, right? So it's basic common sense that Kumar has to see. Kumar has to go to the register office and check if there is any registered happen in this on this land, right? So Kumar cannot say now he does not have any notice. He does not know that there is a mortgage on that. He has constructive notice. So what does it mean? So notices are two types. One is actual and constructive notice. If a person knows about the fact, then it is an actual notice. Let's just say now Sam specifically told to Kumar that Sam had a mortgage on that land. Then he has an actual notice. Kumar has an actual notice. Then constructive notice. Law treats a man who ought to have known the fact even though he did not in fact know it, right? So law will assume that he is the person who are supposed to know that, right? See, while buying the land, you are supposed to go to the register office. That means Kumar has to supposed to go to the register office and inquire it, right? Proper inquiry. So without inquiring, and then you bought the land, and then now bought the land from Sam, and then you cannot say that you don't have any notice on that, right? So that's, we'll call it as constructive notice. So a person is deemed in the eye of law to have a constructive notice. So what are the scenarios when it will be, when law will assume that you have noticed? when there is a absentation of reasonable inquiry, like in this case Kumar is supposed to go to the register office before buying the land and has to check, because previously it is registered, right? So it will be in the register office. He has to make a reasonable inquiry. So if you don't do that, absentation of that, then law will assume that you have a notice. Law will assume that you know the fact that Sam took a mortgage out of the land, or negligence, gross negligence in the matter, or the person who refuses to receive a register letter. So assume that, let's just say, take one example, that you have a gold loan, right? And then you are not paying the interest or principal back to the loan. Then what they will do? They will sell your gold. Bank will sell your gold. So before selling the gold, bank will give a notice, right? And then let's just say they are sending notices to your home, and you are not receiving that letters. You are refusing to accept those letters, and so bank sold the gold, right? And then after selling the gold, you cannot go to the bank, or you cannot go to the court saying that you don't receive any notice from the bank, so that you didn't pay, and then you cannot claim again that, because you are refused to receive a registered letter from the bank. So that's why law will assume that you have constructive notice. Then whatever the bank did is valid. Alright. So do subscribe the channel, and more videos of company secretary will be uploaded in this YouTube channel.